Hello friends, welcome to my channel. So in today's session, we'll discuss about database testing and the database which we'll discuss is Sybase. So let's get started. So what is a Sybase database? Sybase is a relational database management system originally developed by Sybase Incorporation, which later became a part of SAP ASE. There are some basic key aspects and features of Sybase database. It supports relational database management system (RDBMS), and Sybase basically uses SQL and database management. Like it supports robust database management features, including indexing, stored positions, and triggers. Sybase provides security features like advanced security features, for example, encryptions, user authentications, authorization, replication, and high availability. Sybase supports data application across multiple sites, integration and interoperability. Sybase supports data exchange and interoperability, tools and utilities, administration, performance tuning, and monitoring. So in this slides, we basically understood like Sybase is one of the powerful database, especially for certain enterprise environments. Now, like it offers several advantages, as you mentioned, like reliability and stability, and performance. Like it's very high performance. So Sybase can be optimized for high performance transactions, and there's a option for efficient resource utilization also, and that leads to better performance and lower cost in terms of hardware requirements. And security features, as I mentioned, it supports encryptions and auditing capabilities, and scalability also. Sybase can be scaled to a very large volume of data, so to handle large volume of data and high number of transactions. Plus, it supports partitioning, data partitioning also, to improve performance and manageability of large data sets. In terms of tools and management, like Sybase can be used um, tools for database management, monitoring, and development. Now, these include Sybase Central, Sybase and Control Center, and various command line tools like integration and with SAP is one of the basic advantage. So it integrates with other SAP products like SAP ERP, HANA, and it provides cross-platform support. Like Sybase supports multiple operating systems like Linux, Unix, and Windows to provide flexible in development operations, flexibility in deployment options, and replication, as I mentioned. It supports data replication across multiple sites. Cost effectiveness, which is a very important feature. Like Sybase can be more cost effective in terms of licensings and compared to other high level RDBMS solutions. And you can basically use effectively hardware such as system resources, can reduce need to expensive hardware upgrades. And finally, like it supports distributed databases. Like Sybase supports distributed databases management, which can be beneficial for organizations with geographically dispersed data needs. Now, some of the popular databases that in Sybase are Sybase Adaptive Server Enterprise, Sybase ASE, Sybase IQ, Sybase Server Replication Server, Sybase SQL Anywhere. Now, Sybase products are widely used in financial services such as banking for transaction processes, data warehousing, and real-time analytics. Telecommunications, it supports large-scale subscriber database and billing system, and also widely in the healthcare to support electronic medical records and other critical healthcare data. Now, to basically start with like understanding how efficiently we can test like Sybase, it is important to know like what are the database tables in which Sybase data is actually stored. One of the database is Sybase SYS objects. SYS object table is a system table that stores metadata across database objects. This table contains information about various database objects such as table, views, stored procedures, rules, defaults, triggers, and constraints. Now, this table has some of the key columns, such as obviously ID, which is unique identifier, name, name of the objects, type. Like common database objects are users table, view, stored procedures, rules, defaults, and triggers. So you can see like naming convention, like U for user table, V for view, stored procedure for P, R for rule, D for default, TR for triggers, and obviously UID, which is a user ID for objects owner. So sys objects is table is basically critical. It's actually crucial for database administration and understanding the structure of database in Sybase. By querying this table, we can obtain detailed information about all the objects in databases and manage them efficiently. This is one of the important database in Sybase. Next is sys constraints. So sys constraints is another important database which basically stores metadata about constraints defined in the databases. Some of the constraints can be like restricting the column length to 20 characters or 40 characters. This is one of the constraint which normally developers does. So this information will be stored in the sys constraint database. Now key columns in sys constraint database tables is like constraint, the unique identifier of the constraint, table ID, the identifier of the table in which constraint applies, status bytes that describe various attributes of the constraint, type. So type basically defines like how many types of constraints are there, and it will resemble a code. Let's say a primary key, which is a unique key, which will be defined as 1, unique constraint as 2, foreign key, which is shared key, for which has a code of 3, and check constraint 4. Then next is name of the constraint, and call it the column value, column number, or ID of the table. Hence, in this slide, you understood like sys constraint table is essential for database administrator to manage and enforce data integrity rules within the system database. By querying this table, user can basically obtain detailed information about all the constraints applied to the database objects. So this table also holds critical data for data objects verification. We'll move to another table, sys index. So in Sybase, sys index table is a system table that stores metadata across about indexes defined on tables and views within the database. Indexes are crucial for improving the performance of databases based queries by providing efficient access path to the data. So we know like indexes are very much crucial for databases because it helps in improving the performance of database queries. So accordingly, this is also one of the important table which holds critical data for Sybase for data objects verification. So, and it is widely used by database administrators and developers to manage and optimize data performance through effective indexing strategies. By querying this table, user can obtain detailed information about all the indexes applied to the database table, and it helps in making decisions to enhance the query performance. Now, some of the key columns for sys indexes tables are ID, obviously, the identifier of the table and views to which the indexes belongs. Indeed, the identifier of the index, typically 1 for cluster index, 2 for 2 and higher for our non-cluster index, 255 is used for text or image calls. Name, the name of the index. Status, the status bytes that describe various attributes of the index, for example, unique index if it's a primary key index. Key CNT, number of key columns in the index. keys, the bit marks that represent the columns included in the index, created, a date and time when the index was created. So this is one of the important database table, as I mentioned, because it basically decides the performance criteria of the database and helps to improve the database performance. So we'll move to the next database table in Sybase, which is also crucial. So sys comments table. Sys comments table also is a crucial database that is also used in Sybase for data object verification, and it stores the text of SQL definitions for various database objects such as stored procedures, views, triggers, rules, and defaults. This table is essential for retrieving the source code of these objects when needed to review and modification and or migration. Now, key columns for this comments tables are IDs. Obviously, ID will be there, the unique identifier of the object to which the SQL text belongs, number, number used to distinguish between multiple definitions or parts of definition for the same object. For example, large procedures may be stored in various multiple rows. COLID, a sequence number used to order the chunks of the text for an object. Text, the actual text of the SQL definition. This column may store a portion of the text if the object definition is too large to fit in a single row. The sys comments table is actually a crucial table, as I mentioned before. It enables access of the SQL definitions of various database objects, and thus understanding of how to query use this table is essential for database administration, development, and maintenance tasks in Sybase. So there are four tables which is widely used for data objects verification: sys objects, sys index, sys constraint, and sys comments. These are the four tables that we normally use for Sybase database objects verification. Now next is, once you understood like database tables, how you will basically form your queries to basically verify the database objects. Like, let's say you, as soon as you connect to the database, you will find the list of tables. So how will you fetch? You can write these queries like select count star from sys objects where type is equal to u. U is users table. So the Sybase will have like systems table and another is users table. So users table will have mostly the users data, and system table will have systems data. So we'll use type U, that will mostly have the users data information. Then row count validation. Now, if you want to verify the row count verification, you can use this syntax: select count star as target count from table name. This will basically give you like total number of counts or total number of records that a table basically has. Okay, and then schema verification. You can compare the schema of the source with any of the benchmarking data or reference data to ensure that they matches. Okay, that's the basically these are the three primary data object verification. There will be some other verification also. Let's say we need to check the database integrity also. As I mentioned, like number of constraints. So number of constraint, you can basically get the data from sys constraints table, as I mentioned earlier. You can form these queries, okay, and you can frame your subquery also by giving the table name, indexes per table. So this can be fetched from sys index table. You can get the counts, and you can basically form a subquery from sys objects table and get and basically give the input as table name, index column counts per table. So every table will have an index column. So just make sure you have your index column of your database table, and then you can fetch the count by putting a group by clause, regards per database, then select count star as name from sys objects where type is equal to tr. As I mentioned earlier, in sys objects, tr is a code for triggers. So there will be also one another trigger in terms of like number of data per table. every table will have triggers, every database will also have triggers. So you can use this query to get the number of triggers, let's say by putting the code as tr in the sys objects table, and also giving a condition of the table name, and stored procedures like the type will be p in the sys objects. You can fetch the total number of stored procedures in the database. So that's the basic verification points that we normally do for data objects verification in Sybase. Now, next point is Sybase data types. Now, Sybase holds different types of data types: numeric data, then date and time types, character types, binary types, miscellaneous types. So numeric types will have integers, decimals, floating point. So these are some of the data types: tiny int, small int, big int. Big int is nothing but long. It will have bigger integers. And numeric is a numeric, and decimal or float. These are the decimal data types. And for date, we'll use date time. Okay. And character types will be chr, char, varchar, nothing but text. All text in Sybase will be in terms of varchars. Binary type, fixed length binary, or variable length var binary. Miscellaneous type, bit, text, image, money, small money, unique identifier. Some of the common data types we normally use are definitely varchar. Char will be there, date time will be there, and then big int, float, numeric. These are the common data types in Sybase. Now, Sybase commands, like how you will connect to Sybase once you have all the data. To view the data tables, you can use this command. Like you can connect your server name, username, and password. Or if you are using Linux, you can directly SSH and then give your server name if it's already configured. Okay. To exit the Sybase, you can use quit options. Database operations, like how will you create a Sybase database? You can just create a database by giving create database command and db name. Then drop a database, drop database db name. Use database, use db name. So moment you write use database, that means it will connect to that database, and you can fetch the tables of the database. And you can use like db show command to return the list of databases in the Sybase. Users management, how to create a users. So for this you can use an execute command. So execute command in Sybase will starts with exec, and then this is like sp add login. So sp stands for stored procedures. So if your developer has given you a stored procedure, you can execute that stored procedure by using exec command. Then you can enter username and password. Similarly, you can enter username, password, and group. So that will basically create the user and assign to any specific group or Active Directory. Then drop a user. Similarly, you will get a drop stored procedures. So you can just execute that by using exec command. Permissions. How will you grant the permissions in Sybase? You can use grant command, grant, then select, insert, update, delete on table name to username. So basically grant will start with granting keyword, and then you have to enter the table name and to the username. Revoke permission will start with revoke keyword, and then these are the operations: CRUD operation, select, insert, update, delete on table name from username. These are the basic operations in Sybase which you can do once you have the access. We'll move to the next slide. Some of the system information, like like if you how will you connect to a database. Let's say if you have Sybase database, used database is one of the thing, and another is sqsh-d. You can give the database name, so it will be like squish-d database name. Then list the database, select name from sys databases. This will give you the list of databases, list of the tables. As I mentioned, sys objects will have the list of tables having type U, list of columns. So select name sys objects having type U. So this command will return tables and column names both. And list of available tables in database. You can also once you connect through sqsh-d database name, you can use this command sp_help and go. This will list the total number of tables in that database. If you want to list the column names of a particular data table, you can use like sp-help and give the table name. This will give you the details of that table that includes column name, data type, everything. If you want to rename a Sybase table, you can use sp_rename command. You can use the old table name and then give a new table name so that it will rename the table. And then let's say if you are querying a Sybase table, instead of fetching all rows, if you want to fetch like a limited number of rows, you can use set row count and give like 5 or 10 rows you want to fetch out of 100. It will fetch only those rows. These are some of the basic keywords and syntaxes which you can use for verifying your Sybase testing. Now we talked about so much of Sybase, like basic advantage, how should we use, but there are some basic disadvantage also, and this is the reason why most of the companies are switching to better database like Postgres or let's say MongoDB. This kind of distributed database they are switching off because of better performance and higher cost in Sybase. Okay, so in Sybase, like common disadvantages will be like complex licensing cost. The licensing will be more expensive, and then learning curve and expertise. So basically, you need to have some expertise in deployment, administration, and optimization of the Sybase database. And then there are limited community and support. Lack of community support is another reason why people are switching to MSQL, MySQL, or PostgreSQL database systems and modernization. So there is always a challenge like um, integrating technologies with Sybase, and also migrating the database is also very time consuming and difficult. So performance optimization on community hardware. So so the thing is like performance may not be as optimal as on community hardware, and adopting to the cloud technology is also one of the basic challenges. So to recap, like limited community and support, as I mentioned. So Sybase has relatively smaller community, and compared to MySQL, Postgres, okay, and this means that fewer resources, third-party tools, and community-driven support are available, and vendor support is also very less in Sybase. So uh, com- complexity is more in Sybase. So and not much learning curve is there um, because Sybase tools are not uh, widely used, and that's why it can be of sleep. Okay, and compatibility and integration. So integration issues, as I mentioned, it is difficult like Sybase to integrate tools with Sybase, and that's why there are challenges. And like many Sybase installations are legacy systems, which can make modernization and integration with newer technologies much more challenging, and performance limitations also there. Like we know that Sybase can handle larger database, but there is a challenge to scale efficiently, um, and performance tuning is also difficult. Um, in terms of cost, licensing costs are relatively more in Sybase. Okay, and that's why it is a bit expensive. and feature parity, as I mentioned. So some features available in RDBMS might be missing or less mature in Sybase. For example, advanced analytics, machine learning integrations, and built on cloud native capabilities can might not be as robust, and modern features are also not available in Sybase compared to like JSON support, advanced indexing techniques. These are not much available in Sybase. And finally, the cloud adoptions, like for example, like Sybase itself may not be as cloud native as other database solutions, like Amazon RDS, which is widely supports Postgres SQL, Google Cloud SQL and Azure SQL databases. They normally supports SQL, but we don't have such cloud support for Sybase. Migration challenge is also there. So migrating Sybase databases to cloud environments or other database systems can be competitive, and that's why there are quite a few disadvantages in Sybase. So people are adopting SQL and PostgreSQL. They are moving to that directions. And nevertheless, Sybase is a good, powerful, capable database system, especially for certain enterprise environments. And these disadvantages can impact its appeal in a landscape where newer and more integrated and often more cost-effective solutions are available. So organizations need to basically weigh these advantages against their specific requirements and strengths that Sybase may offer for their use cases. So um, we have discussed lots of points about Sybase. So um, there are some advantages, there are some disadvantages, and so I hope you learned like how to test Sybase databases from database objects perspectives. So thank you very much, friends. I hope the session is useful. If you like it, please hit the like button and subscribe my channel. Thank you very much.